Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 308, When Fear Keeps You Frozen and What Helps You Thaw. Well, welcome back as we're moving through October, and as you know, this month has been all about leaning into a theme that feels especially fitting for the season, I think. And that is the season of bravery, like choosing growth over comfort. That's what we're getting into. Well, today we're talking about something that can feel kind of heavy and frustrating. And it's that feeling of being stuck. So maybe you've been circling the same decisions, avoiding the same conversations, or waiting for motivation that never seems to come. You keep asking yourself, like, what's wrong with me and why can't I just do it? But here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not lazy or unmotivated. I think you're scared. And your body is doing exactly what it was wired to do, which is protect you from risk, rejection, or overwhelm. The problem is, and we've talked about this before on the show, is that protection can start to feel like a prison. So today we're going to talk about how fear, shame, and self-doubt can really keep you looping in that same emotional space and what it really takes to get moving again. So if you've been circling those same fears or decisions for months or maybe even years, you're not lazy, broken, or unmotivated. You're just scared. And your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and that is protect you. So when we've lived through stress or criticism, loss or trauma, we know that our nervous system learns to prioritize safety over growth. But we may not realize we're in that space. We may not realize that we started associating newness with danger, and not usually on a conscious level. So when an opportunity comes up, like a new job, a relationship, a change, instead of moving, we might freeze or sabotage. And surprisingly, it doesn't take but a few times where surprises meant bad things could happen, that you dropped your guard and look what happened. And so you don't need to have had huge traumas for your brain to equate new things with letting go of control and thus danger. So fear isn't the problem, it's just the body's alarm system doing its job. The real problem is that over time we stop trusting that the world, or more importantly, we ourselves, can handle what happens if we move. So we know that getting stuck often begins in childhood when emotions like fear or sadness weren't met with safety, empathy, or repair. We learn to shut down rather than reach out in very subtle ways. So later, as adults, we call it overthinking or procrastination or self-sabotage. But really, it's that same old fear of being judged, failing, or losing connection. Maybe all three. So, control, perfectionism, and endless planning become our way of managing that fear. But we know that no amount of thinking ever feels safe enough. Because the problem isn't logic, it's safety. You can't reason your way out of fear that was wired in through lived experience. Your nervous system doesn't respond to pep talks or plans. It responds to felt cues of safety, to tone, to consistency, to self-compassion, and to the presence of safe people. That's why you can make all the lists, you can set the goals, and you can promise yourself that you'll finally act tomorrow and still feel frozen when the moment comes and not do it. Your mind might understand that it's time to move forward, but guess what? Your body hasn't caught up yet. It still believes movement equals danger. We don't move because we don't feel safe. We get unstuck when we start to build that safety back in, piece by piece, through how we speak to ourselves, who we surround ourselves with, in those small moments where we prove to our body that it's okay to take a step. I think safety is built through evidence, and it's created every time someone listens instead of judging you. When you set a boundary and the world doesn't fall apart. Or when you let yourself just rest instead of push through. Those moments tell your nervous system, see, we can move now. It's safe enough. And that's when the freeze begins to thaw. Not when you force it, but when you finally feel supported enough to let go of the old fear response and trust what's next. And I watch this happen all the time with clients, especially clients that are in my groups, because they have that safe space to feel supported and to grow the courage. So let's talk about how avoidance and overplanning are just forms of fear. Well, avoidance feels protective. We know that. And the key word is temporarily. Temporarily reduces anxiety by removing the threat, right? But what we also know is it just reinforces that damn fear cycle, because the longer we avoid, the scarier the avoided thing becomes. Try putting off that phone call you need to return, or that email you need to send, or that conversation you need to have. The longer you put it off, the more awful it feels. And the harder it seems to get back to being able to do it. Because avoidance also reinforces the fear cycle. The longer we avoid, the scarier the avoided thing becomes. Well, overplanning does the same thing. It feels productive, but it's often fear disguised as preparation. And we can tell ourselves we're just being responsible or doing all the research, which are good things in and of themselves, but really, if we're overdoing it, we're trying to eliminate every possible unknown before we move. And it makes sense, right? It gives us a sense of control without risk, which means no movement, no learning, and no evidence that we can handle it. And that evidence is so important. That's why I talk about it all the time. When fear has the wheel, I think we convince ourselves that if we can just gather enough information, script every outcome, or line up every resource, then we'll finally feel ready. But readiness doesn't come from certainty. I think it comes from self-trust. Overplanning keeps us all up in our heads and out of our bodies. And guess what? Here's what's tricky. It quiets our anxiety for a little while because it feels like progress. But underneath, it just reinforces the same belief that froze us in the first place. It's saying, I'm not safe unless everything is under control. But we know that the truth is that growth requires some uncertainty. It's going to require testing what we've learned instead of just thinking about it. And like we've talked about recently on the show, when we take one small imperfect step, even if it's messy, I think we begin to collect evidence that we can tolerate risk, that we can recover from mistakes and still be good people and still be okay. That's how courage is built. Not from perfect preparation, but I think from gentle movement that proves to our nervous system, I don't have to have it all figured out to begin. So what breaks the cycle isn't more information, it's experience. But we can't take that first step until our system feels safe enough to tolerate uncertainty. If we need safety before action, let's talk about what we really need first. We talk a lot about courage and change, but courage is only sustainable when our body feels supported. You can't move out of fear until your nervous system feels anchored enough to risk movement. And here's what builds some of that safety. When your body is in a state of fear or overwhelm, your brain literally can't access the parts responsible for reasoning, planning, or perspective. The prefrontal cortex that I talk about. That's the area that helps you think clearly and make grounded decisions. Well, it goes offline when your nervous system believes you're in danger. That's why, in moments of fear, you might freeze, forget what you wanted to say, or suddenly feel exhausted. And what we know is that trying to force action from this state usually backfires. You either can't follow through, or you push yourself into more stress and self-criticism, which just deepens that fear loop we're trying to get out of. But regulation actually helps you come back into your body so your brain can register, I'm safe enough right now. Slow, steady breathing tells your nervous system to shift out of that fight or flight into some calm. Grounding through your senses, and why every meditation starts out this way, tells you that feeling your feet on the floor, noticing the sounds around you, anchors you in the present instead of past danger or future what ifs. Gentle movement or stretching releases stored tension in your fascia and signals that the threat has passed. That's one of the reasons why it feels so good when you do it. So once the body feels calmer, your mind can come back online, literally. And only then can you think clearly enough to take a thoughtful, intentional action. Action that aligns with your values rather than your fear. When you regulate first and act second, I think you teach your nervous system a powerful news story. I can move forward safely even when I'm afraid. And if you doubt this, I want you to think to moments where you were calm, you weren't in a stressful situation, like maybe you were going for a nice drive, a long walk, hanging out doing something mindless, and some really great ideas came to mind. Or you had some brand new motivation when you went on vacation. That's kind of what's happening is because you felt safe or safer than you do in other situations. And so your mind could actually come back online. But the other big piece that I preach about all the time here is we also have to find safe people because healing can't happen in hiding. So when we've spent years holding everything in, probably convinced that vulnerability is only going to lead to rejection or shame, well, guess what? Our nervous system then learns to equate being seen with danger. And if you tend to isolate when you are upset, even more so. Because that's why even the idea of opening up, like crying in front of someone or admitting what we really feel, can actually make our body tense up and or our throat close. Like you can't get the words out. But something powerful happens when we share our truth in the presence of someone who can hold it without judgment. When we let someone see us, like really see us, well, guess what? The part of the brain responsible for threat detection begins to relax. The amygdala, which fires off alarms when we feel unsafe or ashamed, quiets down when we experience empathy and understanding and not criticism. In that moment, your body receives a new message. It's safe to be me right now. This is why therapy, coaching, and a safe community matter so much. Speaking your fears aloud in a safe environment literally rewires your brain's fear circuits. You move from internalized shame to shared humanity, from I'm broken to I'm human, And that is so important. Because when someone can sit with your truth, and this is key, not rush to fix it, they don't shrink away, they don't make it about them, you begin to internalize their steadiness. You start to feel what real safety and connection are supposed to feel like. And the next time the fear rises, your body remembers that being seen didn't destroy you. It actually helped you breathe again, ironically. But as I keep saying, I want you to start small, because when you've lived in survival mode, your nervous system doesn't need a big change. It needs a safe change. So large, dramatic steps can easily overwhelm the body and confirm its fear that movement equals danger. Let's not do that. And that is why I think small, consistent actions are where real healing happens, because they're how we gently retrain our nervous system to experience a little bit of motion and uncertainty as survivable. You desensitize to the fear. A small step might look like making that one phone call you've been avoiding, and you know how good it feels after you hang up because you did it. Or maybe saying no once without ever explaining. Or even like just sitting still for 2 minutes to breathe when you would normally distract yourself and have to be doing something all the time. So what matters really isn't the size of the step, it's that your body feels it can handle it. Because each small act sends that signal that says, see, we moved and nothing terrible happened. And I think those small wins accumulate as evidence, slowly shifting your inner wiring from fear and avoidance to more capability and calm. And the more you practice, the more your brain learns that forward motion can really coexist with safety, and it's okay. I think what's really important is that when we start small, I think we stop demanding that our courage feel effortless, because we meet ourselves right where we are, not where we think we should be. And I know that resonates with some of you. And so that compassion keeps the door open for growth because it's more possible. And over time, I think these micro steps are what become momentum, because the body begins to expect success instead of fearing it. So that's how change takes root, like not by leaping off cliffs, but by taking one grounded, brave step at a time and letting each success tell your system, hey, it's safe enough to keep going. You can do this. Because when we think about the psychology of momentum, it isn't motivation, it's safety in motion. And every time you take one small step, your brain collects that new data. It says, hey, I did this and I survived. And it actually felt pretty good. And I like myself more and my confidence feels like it's going up, because it is. Because guess what? That data slowly rewires your brain towards a sense of capability. The more safe evidence you build, the less your body interprets change as danger. And that's how fear softens, not through willpower, but through gentle repetition of success. But you can't get unstuck in isolation. You can't heal from unsafe relationships by trying to do everything alone either. And a lot of people do that. They pull back, they isolate, which totally understandable, especially after getting out of a toxic situation. And that's okay to do temporarily so you can heal. But a coach or a therapist and or a group, because I think more people the better, can really help you build a bridge from fear to action. Because remember, they're going to help you regulate, reflect, and risk safely. And you get their helpful feedback. That's more evidence for your brain. They can join with you as to your why it would be good to take this small step, why it's not going to be harmful. And I just really think a community, like a personal growth group or maybe a trauma-informed group, is going to give you that emotional mirroring. It's going to give you a sense of belonging that your nervous system is craving so badly. I think safe support gives your body this whole new story, one where you can move and risk and still be loved. And that is how we learn that movement and connection can coexist. So you don't have to force yourself out of fear, and you can't. You just need to make safety your starting point. If you're feeling stuck, just start smaller. Breathe deeper. Find those safe people. You can move again, not because the fear is gone, but because you've built enough safety to take it with you. And I have a wonderful coaching group that's going on right now, which is an amazing space where I'm watching them support each other in their growth, providing emotional safety to each other. And that is so important. And it's great to see the steps that people are taking. Because this is what courage really looks like, not rushing ahead, but just reclaiming your trust in motion. So today we talked about how feeling stuck doesn't mean you're unmotivated. It just means you don't feel safe enough to move. Because fear and shame and self-doubt really quietly trap us in those loops of overthinking, avoidance, perfectionism, especially when past experiences have taught our bodies that taking risks isn't safe. We talked about how we got to create safety before action and why having safe, supported people around you is so crucial. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If this resonated with you, I hope you are doing things to quiet your heart and body and thus your mind, and that you reach out for support. You can't do this alone. You just need the right people around you. Make sure you check out the show notes. There's lots of opportunities there for courses and coaching and group support. And find me over on Substack because that is a great community. Some wonderful people helping each other. Okay, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.